Hey guys, what is going on? I hope you guys are all having a great day and I hope you're doing well. My name is Elliot and I want to welcome you back to another episode of The Fragrance Well. Today's topic, I'm going to be talking about some fragrances that I either got earlier on in my collection or even one of them recently, and I didn't really appreciate them until some time had passed. Sometimes you get a fragrance in, it's typically going to be a blind buy or maybe even one you were able to sample or smell at a store, and you get it and for whatever reason you just don't like it that much, or it's just not what you expected, or maybe it comes across a little bit differently that it's in a new bottle. Sometimes time heals the wound, if you will. Just letting a little bit of time to go by, letting the bottle maybe get a little bit of air in it. You know, you spray some sprays, let it get a little bit of oxygen into the bottle and mix with the fragrance. Sometimes it comes off a little bit better. Maybe your nose just develops over time and you experience it a little bit differently as time has progressed. That's what I'm going to talk about today. I got 5 fragrances today that I experienced differently as time has passed compared to when I first got them. I'm going to talk about them right now. Alrighty, so the first one I'm going to talk about today is going to be coming from the house of Lalique. This is Encre Noir Sport. Encre Noir Sport. This fragrance features grapefruit, cypress, bergamot, lavender, bourbon vetiver, Haitian vetiver, aquatic notes, nutmeg, cashmere wood, and musk. If you know anything about the Encre Noir line, you know it is all about grassy, woody, wet, damp, earthy vetiver. And this one is very similar to that, except it is the fresher, I would say easier to wear take on the Encre Noir fragrance. So naturally, if you're gonna experience this line, this is the one most people recommend you get first, and that was the case with me. This was my first heavy introduction into vetiver. When I first got it, it wasn't even the vetiver that really threw me off. It was actually the citruses on the top, because I wasn't really used to citrus forward sporty fragrances. This is the first like sport fragrance that I had really smelled deeply. It was the first sport fragrance I got when I started collecting. And let me tell you, as time went on, I really learned to appreciate this one and really appreciate the entire Encre Noir line. I am a big fan of vetiver. I love vetiver scents, and these do not disappoint in my opinion. Not to mention, you just gotta love the fact that you can get these for like 20 bucks. It's pretty insane that a fragrance of this quality is being sold at discounters for 20 bucks. I'm sure Lalique doesn't really like that, but hey, more power to them, and you know, lucky us, we can get great fragrances for such a cheap price. Do be aware that this is not a safe blind buy. None of these are, but I would say that this is probably the safest one to get from the Encre Noir line if you want to experience it. Check it out if you haven't. This is Encre Noir Sport. Definitely a fragrance I began to appreciate way more as time went along. Okay, the next one on the list is going to be from the house of Versace. This is Versace Pour Homme Dylan Blue. The aquatic, salty, citrus, and incense blue fragrance from Versace. This one features aquatic notes: bergamot, fig leaf, grapefruit, ambroxan, black pepper, papyrus, patchouli, violet leaf, frankincense, musk, tonka bean, and saffron. So the thing about this fragrance that I didn't really jive with when I first got it was actually those aquatic salty notes. It came out very minerally, kind of metallic, which is a characteristic of this fragrance. That was just something I didn't really appreciate much when I first got it, and also just kind of over time learned that aquatic style fragrances or aquatic notes are one of my least favorite notes. It's not that I hate them, they just kind of have to be done in a way to where I really like them. And just to be fair to most kind of standard designer scents, they're typically done in a way that I am not the biggest fan of. But that being said, I don't hate them outright. But this fragrance, when I first got it, that's what kind of threw me off to it. That being said, it actually wears really well here in Florida, because I think this fragrance does good against the humidity. It's very humid here in Florida, and this fragrance actually does really well with that. So I kind of wore it a couple more times just because of that alone. And it is known as a good performer, and that is very true as well. And you know, just an easy to wear scent, very pleasing. You know, it's not the greatest thing ever, but It is a lot different from many of the other blue scents, particularly because it has that smoky incense kind of note. Aquatics are very calming, but that's the biggest thing I think that kind of separates this a little bit from most of your standard blue scents. That being said, I do have a greater appreciation for it. Still not necessarily the favorite out of my collection, but I do consider it a successful buy. Okay, next fragrance on the list is going to be coming from the house of Acqua di Parma. This is Sandalo. Sandalo, not a fragrance that's talked about that much, but obviously from the name, if you could take a guess, it pretty much primarily features a note of sandalwood. Sandalwood being a very creamy wood. It honestly smells great, and I actually really like how this one smells on the dry down. Other featured notes in this is petitgrain, bergamot, orange, lemon, cardamom, lavender, Indian sandalwood, tonka bean, and amber. I bought this fragrance pretty early on in my collection journey. I actually did smell it and sample it at my local Neiman Marcus first, but I was sampling and smelling a lot of things on that day. So naturally, there were elements to this fragrance that I were just not gonna pick up that day, but I did like how it smelled. It was unique. So I went ahead and pulled the trigger on it, and I found it on a discounter at a pretty good price. That being said, when I first got it in, the opening is kind of the thing that threw me, because obviously when you're sampling a lot of stuff, that's usually one of the first things you're gonna start to miss. If you're smelling a lot of fragrances at once, you'll miss kind of the nuances in the openings of fragrances. So this one is very citrus forward in the opening with the lemon and the petitgrain, also a note I just wasn't quite used to yet. But the lemon in this is very prominent, even though there are other citrus notes, it's primarily lemon. But once that kind of fades away, that's when you get really the sandalwood and the amber mixing to a very nice, creamy, woody dry down. Once I kind of got used to that lemon note, I appreciated this one a lot more. I had set it aside for a while and kind of came back to it and wore it and let it, fully develop on my skin. And I was just like, oh, that sandalwood dry down is awesome. It's a shame this one's not talked about more, but I imagine there are more interesting sandalwood fragrances out there that just kind of take the place of this one if you're going to talk about sandalwood as a primary note in a fragrance. That being said though, if you can find this for a good price, it's a good pickup. It's nothing outstanding, it's nothing super crazy, it's nothing that's necessarily going to pull you a lot of compliments. It's just a enjoyable wear, and I think it's a great addition to my collection, and honestly one that I think anybody that appreciates the note of sandalwood would enjoy. So this is Sandalo from Acqua di Parma. Alright, so the next one is going to be coming from the house of John Varvatos, and this is Artisan, just the original Artisan. Gotta tell you, if you're not a fan of these woven bottle styles, I don't know what to tell you. These things are beautiful, absolutely beautiful bottles. I love the way they do these. This fragrance has some notes in the base that I do not really know how to pronounce, so I'm not even gonna try, but primarily you're gonna get mandarin orange, tangelo, clementine, thyme, marjoram, lavender, orange blossom, orange jessamine, ginger, georgia wood, serenolide, capillus, that might be how you say it, and there's something else I have no idea how to say it. I'm not even gonna try. So this was also a fragrance I was able to sample and smell out of a department store. I think it might have been a Nordstrom. I got Artisan Pure first because that's the one that I really like the most out of all the Artisan fragrances and many of the John Varvatos. When I got this one in, this is actually a recent purchase for me. When I got it in, it just didn't come off as good as I remembered smelling it when I first sampled it. Granted, that was well over a year ago and much earlier in my fragrance journey, so my nose has developed quite a bit since then, especially when it comes to citruses and things like orange, which this is primarily a very orange forward citrus fragrance. So I remembered it being, I don't know, a lot more enjoyable then, and when I got it in, I was kind of like, I don't know, it just kind of smells very artificial and chemically, and maybe I shouldn't have bought this because I just kind of grabbed it because it was cheap and I was doing like a cheap haul, so I threw it in the mix because this is one of the easiest ones to get in terms of how cost effective it is and its availability. So at first I was feeling kind of like, I don't know, maybe I made a mistake in buying this. I should have just got something else that I was a little bit more sure about or I had smelled more recently. After I let it sit for a couple of weeks, I kind of came back to it, and I think it was because I was sampling, or not sampling, but I bought like 5 fragrances all at once, so I was smelling them all at one time, And I think in the midst of smelling all of them, this one, for whatever reason, just didn't sit that well with me. Now that I've smelled it since then and let it sit for a while and just kind of gotten away from it, it still is rather artificial smelling, but it's more pleasant than I thought it was going to be. So I don't feel so bad about buying it. Granted, I definitely would wear Artisan Pure a million times over this one, and really a lot of other fragrances in my collection. But for an easy kind of warm weather, just nice, fresh, citrus forward, orange smelling fragrance, this is not a bad one to go for, especially when you're kind of in that summertime vibe, kind of vacation type vibe. This one is what was ultimately made for. So not that bad of a purchase, and I appreciate it a little bit more, and I don't mind having it in my collection. This is John Varvatos Artisan. Okay, and the last fragrance on this list, this is going to be coming from the house of Guerlain. This is Guerlain Homme Eau de Parfum, EDP. Absolutely love this fragrance, and I can't believe I didn't appreciate it at first. Guerlain Homme features peppermint, lime, rum, floral notes, vetiver, cedar, and patchouli. So I actually got this at the exact same time that I got Ancre Noir Sport, so it was one of those fragrances that was heavily suggested for like beginners because of how affordable it was and how good it is for what you can get it for. And honestly, the note of rum really made me very interested in this fragrance. I thought that was, awesome. I don't think I had smelled anything that was necessarily boozy forward before that time. So I was very interested to see what that would be like in a fragrance. When I got it in, it was very different from anything I had smelled before, and I think it just took me some time to kind of warm up to it. Also, I think this was one that I needed to let a little air get into it, and I think has smelled better since it has sat on my shelf for a little bit longer and just kind of had some time to let the notes come across a little bit better, I guess, because I often feel like there are some fragrances, not all of them, that when you first get them in and you first spray it, you almost get more of the perfumer's alcohol than you get the actual oils, and then once you spray a few sprays out of it, let some oxygen get into it, the oils just come across a little better when they're mixed with the perfumer's alcohol. I don't know if there's any truth to that. That's just something that I think might happen, but who knows if that's actually true or not. But all I know is with time, as time went by, I really appreciated this fragrance a lot more than I did when I first got it. I do actually pick up the rum better. That was one of the main things that kind of made me say, I don't know, was this really worth it? I didn't really know what I was supposed to smell when it came to that rum note. I do get it now. I love the peppermint and the lime in the opening. I love the floral notes in the mid. I really enjoy wearing this fragrance, especially right now. It is springtime as of me shooting this video. It's just a great wear, a great quality fragrance, and love the fact that I was able to get it for a great price. Check it out if you haven't. This is Guerlain Homme the Eau de Parfum. All right, everybody, thank you for tuning into this video today. That is gonna do it for this. That is 5 fragrances that I learned to appreciate as time went along. Do you guys have any fragrances like this in your collection? Just let me know down in the comments below. Thank you for tuning in once again, and I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next episode of The Fragrance Well.